UFC Vegas 100 is this weekend. That means we've had 100 events in the baby cage, 100 events in that quiet arena, and we need to celebrate. 100 events is spectacular. So we put together a mediocre fight card. This main event is actually pretty solid. The rest of this card is mediocre. I don't know why I said we, because I didn't put this together. Dana White did. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 100 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before we do that, let's take a look at the success that were our ownership projections for UFC Edmonton. If you don't know what DraftKings ownership projections are, give me 5 seconds, I'll explain it. DraftKings ownership projections are for DraftKings Fantasy. DraftKings Fantasy is not betting. It's not a sports book. You get a $50,000 budget and you build a lineup with 6 fighters, just like fantasy football or fantasy baseball. You then take that lineup of 6 fighters and you compete with other people for money. The ownership projections are a very important number that help you build those lineups so that you can separate yourself from the pack, find your spots, and be risk averse. This way, when you're competing with thousands of people and trying to win $100,000, you have the best possible lineup. And the great news for you is we have the best possible ownership projections on the planet. That is a dramatic pause for a reason. If you look at these giant daily fantasy companies like Roto Grinders, Skotastic, these companies that charge $100 a month, they don't have projections this good. We literally have the best projections on planet Earth, and it's freaking $10. And that $10 is not just for the projections. You're also going to get a DraftKings optimizer. This optimizer builds lineups for you. A couple clicks of the button, and it will spit out 150 lineups. It'll spit out one lineup. You're also going to get picks and bets on artificial intelligence. It's not just daily fantasy. Anything you could ever want or need heading into a fight week is available to you for $10 for an entire month. UFC 309 is next week. Unlock all of it. UFC Vegas 100, UFC 309, UFC China is after that. Right now, WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's $10 for an entire month. I don't know how, the greatest value. I don't know how better to express that. Let's go ahead and break down this card. We got a couple of switcheroos here. We lost our co-main event. Cody Garbrandt is out. Miles Johns is now fighting at the end of the year. He's fighting at UFC Tampa. And then we have a brand new opponent because Nicholas Dalby is gone. So Elizeu Zaleski is fighting an undefeated short notice UFC debut. So let's go ahead and break down this card. Opening up the UFC Vegas 100 fight card, we got Melissa Mullins taking on Klaudia with a K, Sygula. Melissa Mullins is an interesting fighter to break down because she's a powerful and accurate striker. She's got good composure considering she only has 7 professional fights. And her offensive striking is clean. It can be impressive, but she gets hit a lot. She doesn't have very good defensive striking. She doesn't have very good head movement. She does have good BJJ. She is, technically speaking, somehow a BJJ world champion. And the only reason I know that, I didn't get that from tape study because it's definitely not in the tape. The only reason I know that is they said that on the broadcast in one of her fights. But then you watch her fight, you're like, a world champion? No, she is not. But that's what they say. She is coming off her first career loss, her first UFC loss to Nora Cornole. She didn't really get the striking going, didn't really get the wrestling going. But the reality is Melissa Mullins can grapple and does have some solid, powerful hands. She is fighting a UFC debut, Klaudia Sygula. Look how she spells Klaudia. And that tells you she ain't from around here. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, Klaudia Sygula is a good striker on her side as well. Powerful. She's not afraid to engage. She prefers to sort of dance around, then try to find a clinch, and she'll throw uppercuts and knees and fight inside that clinch. She's got heavy hands. She's got good volume. She can grapple, but the wrestling is not great. It's the jiu-jitsu that's okay. Get-up game is not great either, because she'll just hang out on her back, throwing up arm bars and throwing up submissions instead of trying to create a mess and get out of there. The reality is Melissa Mullins should win this fight. Klaudia Sygula is decent, but she's not great. She's also have some controversy in her record. She's fighting absolute bums, modified MMA rules, not even true MMA. Modified MMA rules, fighting absolute buns. Yeah, she's good looking. But being pretty doesn't win fights. Melissa Mullins should win this. $8,800 is going to be worth it if Melissa Mullins takes her down, submits her, takes her down, and smokes her. I don't know what, it's women. You just don't know what you're going to get. So let's go ahead and break down the rest of this card. I am confident Melissa Mullins wins. Here, let's take a look. In her other win, 73 points. And that was with 8 minutes of control time. I just don't know if she's going to get a finish, but I do think she's going to win. So do what you want with that information. I don't know what the hell happened here, but let's go ahead and get back to it. We are going to move on to Tresean Gore and Antonio Trocoli. Tresean Gore hasn't fought in multiple years. A little over, just a slight lean over 2 years. His last fight was a win, his first UFC win over Josh Fremd. And we all know how incredibly good Josh Fremd is. What a savage that guy. What a consummate professional. Doesn't miss weight, Josh Fremd. And Tresean Gore beat him. He subbed him. And that's because he went back to his wrestling. He had 3 takedowns. And I say back too because on the regional scene, Tresean Gore is a wrestler, heavy-handed wrestler. And then for whatever reason, he kind of stopped wrestling. He lost that way. Found it again for Josh Fremd, got a couple of takedowns, ultimately found the submission. He is a heavy-handed guy. He does have some decent wrestling. The biggest issue with Tresean Gore is he likes to stare at you. There's no volume here. He just stares at you and waits and stares and waits and stares and waits. And ultimately, you don't know what to expect because if he's just staring at you and waiting and he's not pushing a pace, he's not throwing his hands, he's not shooting takedowns, you don't know what kind of fight you're going to get out of Tresean Gore, let alone 2 years since his last fight. And he is fighting Antonio Trocoli. Also, no stranger to long layoffs. You don't see it here, but there was a 3-year layoff between this Magomedov fight, which we'll talk about, and the fight before that. And that's because of USADA issues. Yes, he was pissing hot. But Antonio Trocoli is a very big guy for this weight class. He's very tall. He's very long. He's got good jiu-jitsu. Takedowns are okay. He's not afraid to engage. He'll move forward. He'll throw some strikes. Like, he will fight you. And he's a big dude with a ton of experience who is dating. I don't think they're married. Maybe they're married. I think he's just dating Mackenzie Dern. So good for him. He is coming off this loss to Shara Magomedov. Listen, what I will tell you is he actually looked okay early. But then he faded very, very quickly. He was finished because he was exhausted. Antonio Trocoli took that fight on like 4 days' notice, flew to the other side of the planet, had to cut all the weight. Like, it just wasn't ideal circumstances. I think Trocoli wins this fight. I think he wins this fight. He's enormous. He has more experience. He's got better jiu-jitsu. Striking is just okay. And he has fought more recently. Am I going to throw in my lineup at $7,600? That's another tricky situation because that's a great price point. But Tresean Gore's, he's got a thick-ass head. And we haven't seen him in 2 years. I don't know how prepared he is. Antonio Trocoli hasn't won in 3 years. I'm probably going to leave this fight alone, but I do think Trocoli wins. I bet on him to win. So I do think he gets it done. So maybe I will throw that $7,600 fighter in my fantasy lineup. That takes us to Cody Stamann and Damon Blackshear. This is another interesting fight to break down because I'm going to pick Damon Blackshear. But I don't want to minimize Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann's good. First of all, let's look at his losses. Oh, he lost to Taylor Lapilus? Good. Oh, he lost to Douglas Silva de Andrade? Bulldozer and good. Oh, he lost to a Nurmagomedov? Good. Lost to Merab? Current champion. Lost to Rivera? Dude, at the time, Rivera was an absolute savage beast. Lost to Aljamain Sterling? Good. I think I'm convincing myself that Cody Stamann is going to win this fight. Every single one of those losses are very good losses. He's beating the people he should beat, and he's losing to very good people. Jimmy Rivera is good. Don't let people fool you into thinking he's not. Damn it. I might have to switch and pick Cody Stamann. I got a bet with Damon Blackshear in it, and I'm questioning it now. Cody Stamann wrestled in college. He's wrestled the majority of his life. He's been boxing since he was 16 years old. He's a well-rounded guy. He's a pretty good fighter. I don't think he's going to be faster. I don't think he's going to be cleaner. But he is a good fighter. Damon Blackshear is also a good fighter. He did just get absolutely flatlined by Montel Jackson, but that's what Montel Jackson does to people. He also has quality losses. Mario Batista is a decent loss. Any Bajarat loss is a good loss, and he's beating the people he should beat. Lacerda, Johnson. So that's what makes this a tricky fight to break down. Skill-wise, Damon Blackshear is an athletic guy. Good striker, impressive speed, good power on his side as well. He can grab. He's got takedowns in every single one of his UFC fights except the Montel Jackson super quick knockout. I do think Montel wins, but the epiphany I had while breaking down the Cody Stamann side, I already have a bet on Damon Blackshear, and now I'm starting to regret it. I don't want to be double exposed. And I'm not going to put Damon Blackshear in a DraftKings fantasy lineup no matter what. He's not going to win by finish. Cody Stamann's a durable dude. So if Damon wins, I think he's just got the better, cleaner, faster striking. Maybe works in a takedown or two offensively and then cruises from there. So Damon Blackshear, I'm going to stick with the pick, but I'm not going to put him in my lineup at $8,900. Then we have Matt Semelsberger taking on Charlie Radtke. Matt Semelsberger, at this point, we know who this guy is. First of all, I was shocked that he's young. He's only 30 or 31. I was shocked. He's the younger fighter in this matchup. I feel like he's been around forever. If we look at his fight history, he's been in the UFC for 4 years, so he's been there since his mid-20s. And he's had some success. He's got some good wins. The losses aren't great, and that's because Matt Semelsberger is pretty inconsistent. He's tough. He's durable. He'll move forward. That pressure can wilt you, but he's not great at anything. He's not a particularly good wrestler. He's not a particularly good grappler. He's just really tough. He will move forward. He will stay in your face, and he's not going to quit. I mean, that's literally it. He's got plenty of power. He has 10 knockouts. 10 knockouts. So there is power, but it's not necessarily just like insane Alex Poetin power. It's forward pressure, will hit you, break you down, never stop moving forward, TKO type power. He is riding a 3-fight losing streak, most recently to Preston Parsons, where he gave up 7 takedowns. 19 takedowns have been given up in his career. And if you look at Charlie Radtke, you're not going to see a whole bunch of takedowns, just the one against Mike Mathetha or Blood Diamond in his UFC debut. But if you go back and you watch the regional tape, Charlie Radtke is a grappler. He's an athletic grappler. He'll lower his level. He'll shoot shots. He'll immediately start working for positions. He does have some solid striking up top as well. Good power in his hands. He transitions well between the takedowns and the submissions, the positions and the submissions. He'll get reckless every now and then trying to chase something, but for the most part, Charlie Radtke is a tough dude who's going to move forward. He's not afraid to fight, says some wild shit on the microphone, but he did just get finished by Carlos Prates, but we now know how good Carlos Prates actually is. I think Charlie Radtke wins this fight. $8,500 is an affordable price point. The only concern here is Matt Semelsberger isn't a guy that you easily finish. And 123 points, that was from finishing Urbina. When he went to a decision with 10 of 15 minutes in control time, he only scored 72 points. So Charlie Radtke may not score well in this fight because on the other side of the cage is a very durable Matt Semelsberger, but I do think Charlie Radtke does win this fight. That takes us to Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and he has a brand new opponent in Zach Scroggin. What an absurd last name that is. But let's look at Elizeu Zaleski. And then they add Dos Santos for just good measure. He's not young. He's an old dude. But he's a solid striker. He's got real power. He's got good athleticism. He is dangerous on the ground. He's very busy. He's active. He's constantly moving. And he has very real power. He also has some solid cardio as well. If we go to this Renat fight, this was a draw because he lost the first 2 rounds. And then almost finished Renat in the third to force a draw. So that shows you A, he's durable. B, he doesn't quit. And C, he's got great cardio. Elizeu Zaleski is very good, and we do get him at underdog pricing here, and that's because he was originally fighting Nicholas Dalby. He is no longer fighting Nicholas Dalby. He's fighting short notice UFC debut, Zach Scroggin. It's Scroggin. Scroggs, get in here. This guy is tall. He's lean. He's 6'3". He's not scrawny, but he is lean. 6'3" at this weight class is actually kind of crazy. I don't know how he's going to make weight. This is being filmed before the weigh-ins. Short notice, 6'3" at this weight class is going to be interesting. But despite his length and height advantage, he does not use his reach very well. He stands straight up and down vertical, and he leans his head back, I think because he's afraid to get hit. His head is literally like, here's his body, and then boop, his head is leaning, put in the middle. Boop, his head is leaning backwards. He does, however, use leg kicks really well. He will chop that tree down and soften you up. He does have a sub 1 minute finish using leg kicks. His grappling is just okay. He actually will use his length on the ground to wrap up submissions, control to top. Ultimately, he's a regional guy. He's getting his short notice step up. He's got a good manager that somehow convinced the UFC, hey, give this guy a shot, even though just don't watch any tape. Don't watch how he fights. Elizeu Zaleski should win. He's old as shit, but he should win here. I'm going to pick him to win. I will have him in my lineup at $8,000. I think if he wants to get the takedowns, he'll get the takedowns. I think if he comes forward bombing away, if he can close that distance, he'll connect and he'll do well. Zach Scroggin Head straight up and back, standing verticals, just begging to be taken down, begging to have his head blocked off. We're going Elizeu Zaleski. Then we have Cortavious Romious. And he is taking on Gaston Bolanos. Cortavious Romious, solid grappler. He's got some decent striking. He's got good power. He's got heavy kicks. He does not throw well in combinations. He's really throwing 1 or 2 punches at a time, not full-blown combinations. He will throw hard, though, and he will move forward. His takedowns are solid. He'll do a great job shooting, and if he doesn't get it, he'll reshoot. Just constantly looking for that takedown once he commits. If he gets to the ground, he'll look for an actual submission. He's not just looking for control. And he is coming off a redemption win on the Contender Series. So this is an official UFC fight. He has fought in that octagon 2 other times. One time, unconscious on the ground, got knocked out on the Contender Series. The other time was his most recent fight, and he got a win. Earned himself a contract. He's taking on Gaston Bolanos. Gaston Bolanos is a good striker. He has a professional Muay Thai background, and he was actually known in Muay Thai and his MMA career pre-UFC for spinning back elbow knockouts. That's his claim to fame. He does have some grappling holes, and those can be exploited, but you're going to need to get through his good striking guard to take him to the ground. He is coming off this knockout loss to Marcus McGee, but I'll break down Marcus McGee for UFC 309. Marcus is very good. He hits very, very hard. The problem with Gaston Bolanos is he doesn't have a backup plan. If he's not winning the striking, he's got nothing. There's no offensive wrestling to pull him out of that hole. And I do think that Cortavious is going to win this fight, but Gaston is dangerous. Gaston is a more of a veteran in this spot, and he hits hard as hell. And we've seen Cortavious literally unconscious in this exact same building, in that exact same cage before. The pick is going to be Cortavious. I hate the pricing on him. I don't think he finishes Gaston. Gaston's a pretty durable guy, obviously outside of the Marcus McGee fight there. I'm going to fade this one entirely. Maybe if you want to have some exposure to Gaston, go for it. That's what the optimizer is for. When you use this optimizer at WeWantPicks.com to build some lineups, you can control your exposure. You should have some exposure to Gaston Bolanos, because I do think that he can absolutely win this fight. We move on. That takes us to Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and she is taking on Denise Gomes. Karolina Kowalkiewicz is a division staple at this point. She has been around the UFC for a very, very long time. She fought for a title years ago. I mean, all the way back to 2015 against Hanna Marcos. She's been around for a while. And she is just coming off of a 4-fight win streak. She beat Felice Herring, Gomez Juarez, Vanessa Demopoulos, Diana Belbita. And then she fought a younger, not worn out, Senda Lucindo. And Eisman Lucindo made Karolina Kowalkiewicz look old. And that is the problem here, because Karolina is a good striker. Good technical striker. She was on a 4-fight losing skid. She went to American Top Team, said, help me out. They fixed some holes. They helped her out. She cleaned some things up. And then now, she's looking old. The Eisman Lucindo fight was a bit eye-opening. Karolina Kowalkiewicz is slowing down. She's a little older towards the end of her career. And eventually, you're going to look like it's the end of your career. She's taking on Denise Gomes. Denise Gomes is a powerful striker. She can grapple as well. She can be hittable, but she doesn't care because she's incredibly tough and she's never out of a fight. She'll continue to move forward. She'll bite down. She will bomb away. It does take her a few minutes to get going. She's kind of a slow starter, but she'll work in kicks well. She'll be dangerous on the ground if it's there. She is coming off that decision win over Eduarda Mora where she gave up 5 takedowns and still won. And I think she wins here. She's going to be younger, faster, stronger. Karolina looking old in her last fight is a bit alarming and a bit of a problem. And I think it's going to be a problem here for sure. Denise Gomes should win this fight, $9,400. No. I don't love anybody. I don't love the pricing on this card is way out of whack. And I guess everybody's stuck with the same pricing. You're stuck with the same bullshit. But $9,400, she's not going to finish Karolina. Karolina's just too durable, too old, too veteran savvy to get finished. So we're going to end up with a decision. And there's probably not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we do get a bunch of takedowns out of her, like when she fought Brana Brasil. But I don't think she's going to be worth $9,400. But I am pretty confident that she gets it done. Then we have A very interesting matchup with a Division I wrestler, which you know I'm going to love, and a hot prospect in Mansur Abdul-Malik. I'm going to pick him here. I am going to spend the $9,300. Pretty confident in that because he's a Division I wrestler, as I mentioned. But he doesn't just shoot a takedown and hang out on top. He gets a takedown and then immediately starts exploding. He's elbowing. He's punching. He is looking for a finish. He's throwing heavy on the feet. He's shooing big takedowns, and he's throwing heavy on the ground. And you're going to get a Division I wrestler who's looking for a finish against a very finishable guy. You got to have him in your lineup. He is fighting Dusko Todorovic. Dusko's a decent striker. He's got some okay power. He also has offensive takedowns, offensive BJJ, but he's going to struggle defending the takedowns. And while he has some power, he doesn't really have the chin to back up the power to hang out in a firefight. You're going to see, oh, he got knocked out by Christian. He didn't get knocked out. This was a freak knee injury in this fight here. So that wasn't truly a TKO loss, but obviously we've seen him get finished before, and I think it's going to be more of the same here. I think he gets taken down. I don't think he's finished on the feet. I think he's finished on the ground with elbows. I think he's just going to be too much pressure, too much on top, and I think Mansur Abdul-Malik is going to have a great UFC debut, and therefore he will be in my lineup. Then we have Jillian Robertson, and she is taking on Luana Pinheiro. Jillian Robertson will also probably be in my lineup because of the submission upside. Jillian Robertson is the all-time queen in this division. Most amount of submissions ever in this division. Her takedowns are just okay. Her striking is just okay, but her grappling is so good. If you could stuff those takedowns and touch her up on the feet, you could smoke her because she's not as well-rounded as she should be. But I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I think she gets the takedowns. I think she works on top, and I think she ultimately gets a submission. She's coming off that win over Michelle Waterson, that retired Michelle Waterson, but, frankly, we knew she was retiring. And anytime somebody comes into a fight knowing they're going to retire, you don't know what that fight camp looks like, etc. Jillian Robertson obviously couldn't submit the karate hottie, but she's got worlds of experience. And the reason I'm confident that Jillian's going to get a submission here is she's fighting Luana Pinheiro. Luana Pinheiro isn't exactly the greatest grappler of all time, and we just watched Angela Hill submit her. And Angela Hill doesn't finish anybody. But she submitted Luana Pinheiro. Luana Pinheiro is more of a striker, very powerful striker. She does have some offensive takedowns, and her BJJ is decent. We're going to say decent. She averages about 2 takedowns per fight. But the reason she can get those takedowns is because she's hitting you, she's throwing hard, she's getting you in a little bit of trouble, and then she can work some takedowns. People are so worried about the power, because she is powerful, but they're not worried about the takedowns, and she'll sneak one in. The problem is she swings wild. She runs forward. So I think she will get taken down here. I think she'll get finished. If Angela Hill's submitting you, Jillian Robertson probably is as well. It's that simple. And maybe she won't. These are women. But I do think Jillian Robertson gets the submission. And if she doesn't get the submission, it'll be a grappling showcase, and she should score well that way as well. Then we have UFC debuter Renier de Rider taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Renier de Rider is a new name to you unless you watch international MMA. He is the former ONE FC champion, 2 division, middleweight and light heavyweight. He's a very tall guy. He's very big for this weight class, and he's a grappler. He'll hang around. He'll strike for a little bit, but it's not very clean. It's a bit sloppy. He's a grappler. He's got good, nice takedowns. And on the ground, he will wrap things up and he will get it done. He has a ton of finish wins, all sorts of different ways. He's very long and he uses that length incredibly well. And he's actually a good grappler. He's not just a long dude grabbing random guillotines. He will actually work. He will shoot the takedown. He will move to positions. He will find the submission. And more times than not, he gets the submission. Former 2-time ONE FC champion, and he is fighting fellow grappler Gerald Meerschaert. Gerald Meerschaert's a very good grappler. He has some power in his hands. It's actually a bit underrated, the power in his hands. He knocked down Bruno Silva. You can see that here. And now we know Bruno Silva's like old and sucks and he's done, but that was 2 years ago. Gerald Meerschaert famously is never out of a fight. His last fight is a perfect example. Edmund Shabazian was beating the shit out of him, and then Gerald shoots one single takedown, gets the takedown, finds a submission. Gerald Meerschaert is a very durable guy. And I know you can say, oh, look at all these finished losses. Yeah, he's been finished. But Joe Pyfer hits like a freight train. We know how good Hamzat Shamaev is now. So yes, he's been finished. But Gerald Meerschaert, for the most part, is a durable guy. He's got some sneaky power in his hands, and he's a very good grappler. I still think he loses this fight. I think Renier de Rider is going to be too big, too young, too slick on the ground. Now, the question becomes, is he able to submit Gerald? Gerald's a very good grappler himself. So we may just have a grappling showcase on both sides. But the reason I'm picking Renier de Reder to win, because he has the better takedowns and he's more likely to shoot first. Therefore, he will be in top position. He'll be controlling the grappling. He'll be controlling that pace. So I think Renier de Reder wins this fight, but I am a little reluctant if he's going to get the submission. Obviously, Jack Hermansson submitted Gerald Mearshart. Like, he's been submitted before. He's not like the greatest grappler that's ever walked the face of the earth, but he's a very good grappler. If you think Renier de Reder gets the submission, then he should be in your lineup. If you think this is a 15-minute back and forth grappling showcase, probably best to not have that in your lineup. Then we have Bernardo Sopai. I guess this is the new co-main event. That's an absurd. If this is the new co-main event, that's, I mean, what a disservice they're doing to UFC Vegas 100. But we got Bernardo Sopai taking on Ricky Tercios. Bernardo Sopai is very good. Now, if all you saw was the highlight knockout loss to Vinicius Oliveira, you're going to be like, oh my God, how is he still standing? And I don't know. That was one of the most vicious knockouts we've ever seen. And it sucks because Bernardo is good and he's young. And you get hit like that and you get knocked out like that, the recovery time is not a couple of months. But here we are, a couple of months later. I mean, it's not 2 months later, but it's not a full year. Somebody that young should have taken at least a full year. But Bernardo Sopai is good. He's a fast-paced guy, high-energy guy. He's got good power for his size. He's not very big, but he's got good power, stays light on his feet, and when he sees openings, he'll explode in combinations. He'll even get some really nice takedowns. The takedowns against Vinicius were spectacular. Well-timed, great takedowns, and he was winning this fight. He was doing really, really well until that wild combination in the third round. He's taking on the always fun to watch Ricky Tercios. Ricky Tercios is not very good, but what he is high-paced. Lots of pressure, tons of cardio. You can see he landed 100 significant strikes against Brady Highstand. You could see he landed 170 strikes against Natividad. So this dude is putting up numbers. He is busy. He is staying in your face. He was even winning against Raul Rosas Jr. before things didn't go his way. He had Raul Rosas Jr. in a rear naked choke. And Ricky's pace, Ricky's pressure can be a problem for a lot of people. And while I do think Bernardo Sopai wins this fight, I think Ricky is a great $7,200 play in your DraftKings fantasy lineup. Just measure your exposure. So Bernardo should win. Bernardo's the better fighter, but Ricky's pace is absolutely incredible. And if he's shooting takedowns and he's staying in Bernardo's face, and Bernardo's a little hesitant because he was just very badly knocked out in his last fight, Ricky could have some early success, get some takedowns, keep Bernardo out of sorts, not let him start to flow. Bernardo is going to be the pick because he's quite literally the better fighter almost everywhere. But the Ricky Tercios cardio and pace is something that may be worth a stab or two in a DraftKings lineup. Then we have the main event. Carlos Prates wins by knockout. You should put him in your lineup. Okay, there's that. Now let's expand on it a little bit. He's obviously a phenomenal striker. What he was able to do to Charlie Radtke was impressive. The Jing Lang was impressive, but the Radtke one was even more impressive because he pointed. I'm going to knee you right there. Then he kneed him and finished him. He basically can do whatever he wants. I was giving him a hard time after the Trevin Giles fight because he took way too much time in that fight. It was low volume. My notes said do nothing PUSSY. Those were my notes on Carlos Prates. That was like watching live. That was my takeaway. And then we saw him do work against Charlie Radtke. Then we saw him absolutely tee off on Jing Lang. Everybody's like, nobody knocks out Jing Lang. Well, Jing Lang can't be knocked out. Carlos Prates knocked him out like 6 times. This dude's striking is unbelievable. He's at the Fight Nerds Gym, so you know he's well prepared. You know he's ready for anything. And he needs to be because he is fighting a tried and true UFC vet in Neil Magny. Yes, Neil Magny was just knocked out in his last fight. And for this reason, I think he gets knocked out in this one as well. But historically speaking, Neil Magny is a guy who is very durable, who uses his veteran savvy, uses his length to hold you against the cage and have some success. Right before that, he beat Mike Malott. Mike Malott was a tremendous favorite. You can see Neil Magny was $6,900. Mike Malott was a tremendous favorite. Tremendous favorite. And Neil Magny weathered the storm, took over, finished him in the third. Mike's a bit of a quitter, but that is what it is. Neil Magny is a veteran. He's going to need to use the veteran savvy. If he wants to win this fight, he's going to have to slow this pace immediately get Carlos Prates to the cage, hold him there, and just hopefully wear him out. I don't think that happens. I think Carlos Prates knocks him out. Therefore, Carlos Prates will be in my lineup. Guys, that's the breakdown. These are the numbers we're putting up. We're smoking DraftKings ownership projections. We have an optimizer that builds lineups for you. We have a whole suite of bets and other tools and insight. And we're doing really, really well. Just go check the community. See what they have to say. If you want to unlock everything that we do, not just the DraftKings fantasy, but the FanDuel stuff, Underdog, Prize Picks, bets, picks, artificial intelligence. You want to check it all out? WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's freaking $10 for an entire month. Next week is UFC 309. You're going to get this card. UFC 309, UFC China. It never ends. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.